I get it. There are a lot of curriculums to choose from, and it can be overwhelming. I've been a homeschool mom myself for over a decade, and then I also grew up homeschooled, so I watched my mom go through these same challenges. One thing I have noticed is that there are several common mistakes that people make when it comes to buying curriculum. And I'm going to share with you guys today what those are and hopefully help you avoid these common pitfalls. Number one is picking a curriculum just because it worked fantastic for your friend or family member, cousin, college roommate, whatever it might be. This happens oftentimes when people are overwhelmed. They're like, I don't know what choice to make. Susie, just tell me what you did and I'll just buy the same thing. Now, I will say, if there is an experienced homeschool mom that knows you very, very well and has been doing this for several years, they might be able to help match you up with a good curriculum, taking into consideration criteria like your child's learning style, your family life, your situation, things like that. So definitely listen to the wisdom of others, but don't buy something that someone else has bought just because you don't want to make the decision. It's usually not going to end well. The second mistake is forgetting about the budget. I have seen many people who think that automatically if something is really expensive, it has to be significantly better than cheaper options. And I have seen the reverse, where they think if it is free, then it must be best, that we've got to go as budget as possible. The reality is you need to figure out what your family can realistically spend and look within your budget at all of the options, the things that are at the top end and the things that are at the bottom end. Typically, the rule of thumb is going to be that the less money it costs, especially if it is a totally free item, the more time it's going to take to prepare. But that's not always the case. And again, typically the more expensive items are going to take a little less prep time or assembly required, or maybe less kind of gathering the books together. But that's not always the case. So take the time and consider the cost of both the financial cost as well as the preparation cost that's involved, and then pick something that's right for you and your family. The third mistake I make is seeing people skip the trials or the sample lessons that are usually available online. I know I'm guilty of this too. I do a deep dive. I get hyper fixated on one curriculum and I have to have it. I know I've watched all the videos. I don't need to try it out. And I go ahead and spend a lot of money and order the curriculum only to find out within a lesson or two that my child absolutely hates it or it doesn't work quite the way I thought it did. Most curriculum companies offer trial lessons or different options out there to help your child get a feel for it and help you get a feel for it. I know like BiblioPlan, one of the histories we enjoy using, actually offers several weeks of their curriculum free. And Teaching Textbooks offers the first 15 lessons completely free that your child can do. That's going to give you a pretty good understanding of not only is the curriculum a good fit, but also are you placing your child in the right level? Because many people will place their children wherever their grade is on the curriculum instead of making sure it's a curriculum that fits their specific needs. The next mistake is buying too much of the curriculum. If the curriculum comes in multiple pieces, like CLE, for example, comes typically with 10 units or 5 units, 5 workbooks that make up the entire year, consider just purchasing that first one and getting a chance to try it out. Or I've seen people where they take the All About Reading curriculum and they see it comes in 4 levels and they buy all 4 at one time. No. Just pick 1 year, start small. If you love it, then go ahead and buy the rest. That's fine. But it actually is something that doesn't end up usually saving you a lot of money. And it is either easily to lose things that you've purchased and then forget that you've purchased them down the road, or to end up purchasing something that ultimately is not going to be the best fit. Next up is not paying attention to the amount of teacher involvement. Now, I gotta clarify this because I think sometimes I see parents wanting, and I understand why, I have 6 kids, so I get it. They want curriculum that's going to involve very little of them because they're busy and they're divided between all of their kids. That's not always feasible, nor is it always wise, especially in the early elementary years. Your kids need more of your one-on-one focused attention and really need to be doing not a whole lot independently, especially when we're beginning those math skills and beginning those reading skills. They need you as the parent. They need somebody to be one-on-one with them. That being said, we can pick and choose which things we want to be teacher intensive and which ones can be a little more hands-off. For instance, teaching how to read, especially if you have struggling readers, probably needs to be teacher intensive. Teaching those early math skills probably needs to be teacher intensive. For me, as soon as my kids hit 3rd grade, I ship them over to teaching textbooks and I let that take the bulk of the work for me. Yes, I still have to help with a few math problems here or there, but I'm not doing the majority of the teaching. So you can kind of gauge it depending on the age and stage of your kids and depending on their specific needs. I personally like to make sure that there's no more than 2 teacher-intensive subjects per child. I prefer 1, but in those younger years, it might need to be 2. And then I have more relaxed or more hands-off opportunities for my kids for other subjects. So for my high schoolers, I pick 1 or 2 subjects that I really want to be involved with. I want to teach them about worldview, or I want to be able to be involved in them learning about Bible and theology. But I'm okay with them having hands off for most of the rest of it. Another big mistake that I see people doing all of the time is not considering the parent-specific teaching style. So we hear a lot about know your child's learning style. Are they an auditory learner, a visual learner? Are they kinesthetic? Those are helpful, and it is good to think about your child's specific learning styles, but it is also equally as important to think about your particular teaching style. For me personally, I am not a crafty mom. Any curriculum that's going to involve an excessive amount of crafts or science experiments is not for me because I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to cringe at the thought of my kids doing it themselves. So because of that, I kind of steer clear of those kinds of curriculums. Or for our science that does have science experiments, we do it with a group and do it all together so that there's shared mess, shared pickup, shared fun in that experience. So just consider those things. What are your personal leanings? You may not know yet, and you may need to try a few things, but as you try things, if things don't work, take note of that and learn from that for the future. It's not wasted unless you don't learn from your mistakes. So I encourage you to consider to try new things and to see, am I a read aloud mom? My friend Wendy from Plan Prep Pray is not a read aloud mom. She really despises reading aloud. So picking a curriculum that is based fully on read alouds, probably not her best bet. So consider your teaching style as well as your kids' learning. The next mistake is a doozy, and that is when buying used curriculum, not paying attention to critical things like what edition you are purchasing and making sure, especially if you're piecing together curriculum, making sure that it matches up. Because I have seen many times someone buy a second edition teacher book, but a first edition workbook, and they are not compatible. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. Or not paying attention to the fact that you may be purchasing a whole kit, but when you get it, you realize there's pieces missing and they no longer sell those pieces. I love to buy used and I'm not against it at all, but I do think there are some really important things you need to know if you're going to buy used curriculum. And if you are looking at buying used curriculum, be sure to check out this video because it goes through everything you need to know and what mistakes you can avoid specifically when it comes to buying those used curriculums.